Hi, thanks for stopping by today. I want to do something a little bit different. Instead of talking about one of my ancestors, I'm going to tell you a story that happened to me. And this is a story that's nearly 50 years in the making. And it actually goes back to the time when I was just a little guy. And I don't know if we can see this very well. I'm going to try and hold this up. This is a picture of me that was taken on June 10th of 1964, and I was just 7 years old, just getting ready to turn 8, and I'm holding in my hands one of the first fish that I ever caught, and so that's me, uh, just as I was getting ready to be baptized. And I still remember, I debated about putting names in. I'm going to share names. I remember Bishop Pendleton was the bishop of the Reston, no, not Reston, it was Renton 3rd Ward in Renton, Washington. And I still remember him coming to the house for my baptismal interview. And that happened in September of 1964. And I remember that there, back in those days, at least in the stake that we were in, and I know it still happens a lot, there was a stake baptism for all the kids that were turning 8. And we got together in the Renton building. I remember there were several of us. I don't remember much about the service itself. But based on everything I can find, I was baptized on September 26th, 1964. Now, why that's interesting is because I was still 7 when I was baptized, because my birthday is October 1st, 1956. And so I didn't turn 8 until about 4 days after I was baptized. Now, no big deal. I went on, I lived my life. I was ordained a deacon, ordained a teacher, ordained a priest, ordained an elder, served a mission, came home, got married, raised my family, and in the year 2010, so we're going to jump ahead from 1964 all the way to 2010. And in 2010, that year, the church came out with new handbooks of instruction. And in fact, you can go online and look at handbook number 2. That's there for everyone to see. Handbook number 1 was the Blue Handbook that was developed for bishops and stake presidents. And I happened to be serving as the bishop at that time when the new handbook came out. And as I was going through the handbook, I came across a section in there that talked about ordinances that were done prior to the proper age. Now, I no longer have a copy of Handbook 1, so I can't get the exact wording or the paragraph number and the reference. But basically, what that said was that any ordinances that were performed prior to the proper age were invalid. And they said, for example, let's say a person was baptized before the age of 8. That would mean that that baptism was invalid. So here it was. I was reading it in black and white. And as the bishop, my baptism was before I turned 8. And so I got thinking, wow, how would it be to have a baptism where I got to be baptized again? Well, of course, I did what any good member would do. I went to my priesthood leader. So I made him on the phone. Did I call him? Can't remember if I called him or sent him an email, but I referenced the chapter and verse of the new Handbook 1 and told my stake president, President Lynn Chapman, that President, I fall under this category because I was baptized prior to turning 8. And he said, well, let me see what I can find out. And so the next day, I called him on a Sunday. The next day was Monday. He called Salt Lake, and then he got back in touch with me and said, you're right. We need to get this fixed. And so in joking around, I thought, well, there's a couple options. We could have another baptismal service, or the way that they wanted to do it was they would do what is called, hold on one second, I just went blank. a application to the first presidency. And this is a process that I had been involved with many times, and it basically it's you put all the facts on paper, and usually the person involved writes up a letter with the facts. The bishop adds a letter with the facts as he understands it, and then the stake president adds a letter with the facts that, as they understand it, and that's all put together in a neat package, and that's submitted to Salt Lake City, where the first presidency then reviews it and comes down with a determination. So that's what we did. I wrote a letter with the facts as I knew them, that I was indeed baptized just slightly before my 8th birthday at a stake baptism. I'm guessing it was just more convenient rather than refilling the font again or waiting until the next stake baptism. Everybody decided it would be best just to go ahead and have me baptized with all the other kids, even though close enough, good enough for what we were doing. So we sent that in. I wrote this up, and the stake president added his letter, and we cited the new rules that were in the handbook. And about 10 days later, we got a letter back. My stake president called me, and he said that the first presidency had met and that they had ratified my baptism and all subsequent ordination and church ordinances that had taken place. And so I was good to go. But it was kind of an interesting thought game to think about, geez, if I really hadn't been baptized, does that mean I'm really married? Or what about all the people that I have then set apart or blessed or given the priesthood to, including my own boys who then went off on missions, and my daughter. So anyway, just this whole web of things that were affected by one simple ordinance that turned out to be just fine. They did ratify that and everything else that had been done. I now have that letter. I keep it with me, and it's not often that the first presidency talks about your status in the church, and this one was one that went off very well. So I'm very grateful for that. Interesting thing, I wasn't the only one. Many of you know my sister Julie. She was still living in the same ward when she turned 8, and the same thing happened to her. And she was also baptized before she was 8 and had to go through the entire process just as I did. And her baptism was also ratified by the first presidency, which means that we're both in good standing today. And I think that's the real takeaway on this. So, okay, lesson learned. What do we learn from this? Do it the right way. I don't know. Is there anything else we could learn from that? Keep the commandments. Choose the right. I don't know. Whatever works for you. Thanks for stopping by. We'll talk to you again next time.